Hello my Dorklings, welcome back. Today I'm going to be showing you a tutorial on Open Broadcaster Software, or OBS for short. I'm going to try and keep this video at 30 minutes or less just because it really shouldn't take that long. We're going to be covering download, install, and the basics like adding a webcam and things like that, so it shouldn't take too long. First things first, you're going to want to go to this website. It will be in the description down below, very first link that you will come across. So OBS, or Open Broadcaster Software, is compatible with Windows, Mac, and Linux. Personally, I'm using Windows, but the setup should all roughly be the same. So to get started, you're either going to choose Linux, Mac, or Windows. Since I'm on Windows, I'm going to click this top download installer right here. This one is for Windows 64-bit. If you have Windows 32, there is one right below that, or if you know anything about zip files, you can download it as a zip, but I'm going to go with the OBS Studio installer. While you're waiting for that to download, as you can see here, there are quick start guides, there's overviews, forums, and you can even join the community Discord. I've not done any of that. I've just done my own research and kind of figured out OBS on my own. But these resources at your disposal if you need them. Once you're done downloading OBS, you're going to want to click on it, open up the installer, and basically just follow along, read the instructions, and install it. Once you have successfully installed OBS and open it up for the first time, you should be greeted with a screen like this. If the auto configuration wizard doesn't automatically pop up the first time you open OBS, then you need to go to Tools, Auto Configuration Wizard. And basically this is the first time setup that you're going to want to run. If you're planning on using OBS to stream, I would highly select this one, the top option, optimize for streaming, recording is secondary. If you're going to use OBS to do something like a tutorial like I'm doing, you're going to want to select this second option, optimize for just recording. I will not be streaming. And this last option down here, I will only be using the virtual camera. That is kind of cool. Basically, you can use OBS with like backgrounds and animated text and whatever you want as like a virtual camera, say in Zoom. Once you've selected your option, click on Next. So your base canvas resolution is going to be your preview on OBS. So that you can do 1920 by 1080, you can do 3840 by 2160 if you have 4K, or I would recommend if you have a lower end machine starting at 1280 by 720. Personally, I'm going to use 1920 by 1080. As far as your FPS, frames per second, you can use 30 or 60, or you could do 60 or 30, but prefer 60 when possible. This is honestly your preference. If you have a lower end machine, obviously I would probably stick with 30 specifically, like don't change that. After you have all this set up, you're just going to want to click on Next. Then your service. So there are several streaming platforms, obviously. I started out on Twitch. I now stream on YouTube here on this YouTube channel. So I'm going to go with YouTube. There's also Facebook, Restream.io, which is a multiple platform streaming service. Basically, you can stream to YouTube, Twitch, all of that at the exact same time with Restream, which is what I used to do. There's Twitter, which I believe is Periscope. It might actually be Twitter now, I'm not sure. But the two big ones are Twitch and YouTube. I'm going to go with YouTube. And then you have two options if you use YouTube. You can either connect to your account, which is recommended, which I too would recommend. It just makes things a lot easier. Or you can use a stream key, which if you're going to use a stream key, that will be a separate process. So I'm going to go with connect account. Once all that's said and done, you should be set up and ready to get started. So let's take a look at everything really quickly. So this is your preview. This is basically whatever you see here is also what your stream is gonna see by default. Down here in the left-hand corner is your scenes. This is where you're gonna be building the different scenes that you could switch between. So like I have my starting soon. I have my live stream, which is, as you can see here. Then I have my ending scene. This is my be right back scene, which is my preview if I'm gone from the keyboard, but I'm still live streaming. And then this is my untitled, which is what you guys should have to start with. Immediately to the right, you have sources. This is things like your game that you're going to be capturing, your microphone, your secondary monitor, your webcam, whatever you want to add up here. That's basically that. Following up to the right of sources, you have audio mixer. With audio mixer, that's basically where you can adjust the volume of, say, your microphone or your video game or your music, things like that once you add them in sources. And to the far right, you have scene transitions. This really isn't too big of a deal that you really have to worry about, but it's basically whenever you switch between these scenes over here on the left-hand side, you can choose what kind of transition happens when you click between all of them. So there's a fade, 300 milliseconds, there's a swipe, cut, slide, stinger, fade to color, luma wipe, and yeah, but you don't really have to mess with those that much. Then you have your controls, which would be start streaming, start recording, start your virtual camera, studio mode, settings, and exit. And lastly, down here at the bottom, if you are currently live streaming, it will tell you how long you have been live for on the platform of your choice. If you are recording, whether it be recording and live streaming or just recording like I'm doing now, it'll show you your time down here as well. Your CPU usage and how many frames is currently being captured. Now that we've talked about all this stuff, let's continue on to the fun things. First things first, you're probably going to want to come down here under scenes under Untitled, right click, and then rename. You can name this one whatever you want it. For this tutorial and demonstration purposes only, I'm going to name this one YouTube tutorial and then hit enter. There we go. So YouTube tutorial scene. If you'd like to add another scene, you can click on the plus button to add. You can hit minus to remove. Then lastly, with the arrows, you can move them up and down to your liking. Personally, I like the way mine is here, so I'm going to leave it here. So once you've titled your scene appropriately, which you should always title all of your scenes just to keep them in order. Just, you know, it'll help you out in the long run, trust me. You're going to want to come over to sources, and you're going to want to click on the plus button. So here are a list of all of the sources by default that are in OBS. You have your audio input capture, so like things such as a Yeti microphone or one of these microphones, if you have those. Some webcams, like my webcam has a microphone built in, so things like that, your audio input capture. Your audio output capture is things like your headphones, so whatever you can hear, your stream will also be able to hear. Maybe your speakers. Basically, you can have multiple outputs. So for me, I only have my headphones. I do not have computer speakers, but I do have like 4 or 5 different ports that I can add. So we'll get to that in a little bit. A browser source, that one's a little hard for me to explain, but basically, depending on how you have your OBS set up, you can have other things such as like your alert box or your chat like appear on screen with your stream, which we'll get to that in a minute. Color source just displays a solid color wherever you want it to, and basically almost any shape you want it to, but default is square. Display capture is actually what I'm using right now. Display capture can capture any singular one of your monitors. So perhaps you have a 3-monitor setup and your main monitor is where you play your video games. This is what you would want to use, and maybe have OBS on one of the other monitors in your main game or whatever you're wanting to record. You use display capture. Game capture is similar to display capture, but it only captures a very specific game. So say you're playing Back 4 Blood or Left 4 Dead or something like that, then you're going to want to use game capture. Image, that's self-explanatory. It's just a singular image. It supports JPEG, PNG, basically all of the file formats. Image slideshow, that should also be self-explanatory. It basically cycles through images at whatever set interval that you choose. Media source shows you things such as MP4 files, MOV files, basically movie files. A scene displays one of the scenes over here on the left-hand side. Text should also be self-explanatory. That's basically any kind of text you want. Maybe you want your name in a cool font or something like underneath your webcam. You can do that with text. For video capture device, that could be things like a webcam, or it can be any form of capture card that will hook up to your computer, your phone maybe, if you can use that as a webcam, you know, your DSLR, stuff like that. That's what video capture device is. Window capture is kind of the same thing as game capture, but obviously it captures a specific window, not necessarily a specific game. So maybe you have Photoshop open and you don't want to record your whole screen because maybe you have an NSFW background as your desktop. Well, then you can use window capture and it'll only capture Photoshop and not your whole like desktop. Info Writer, you guys shouldn't have that. That is an add-on, so disregard Info Writer. Now that we know what sources are, let's start adding them. Just to let you guys know, I personally struggled with this, and I know a lot of people struggle with this when they start, but the sources go in layers. So if you're familiar with, like, say, Photoshop, GIMP, or Paint.net, stuff like that, it works the same way, and I'll show you what I mean in a second. So again, to get started, we click the plus button to add, and we pick a source that we want to add. For me personally, I think I'm going to do display capture, and I am going to title it Monitor Number 2, if I can spell. So here we go. As you can see right now, it's capturing the monitor that you guys are seeing. I don't want that. So it's kind of trippy, bear with me. But basically, capture method, automatic. You want it to be automatic. The display, this is my 4K monitor, which is my primary. We don't want that. We want it to capture the secondary, which is this. So, okay, cool. So now we have monitor number 2 under our source. If we want to hide that at any point, we can click on the eyeball and it completely disappears. And as you can see here, hopefully, there is a red box around the window. You can grab that and you can transform it. So you can drag and drop however you want. And say that you want it to be that small for some reason, you can come down here and lock it. And now you can't accidentally move it anywhere or rearrange it. So we're going to unlock this. And you can either click on it and then the red boxes come back and you can do it however you want. By default, it keeps the aspect ratio, and you can get around that by clicking shift that disregards aspect ratio, so you can stretch it out however long you want, or you can make it small. And then whenever I move down here, you can see it's tiny. And then if you use Alt, you can actually cut pieces of the screen off like this. So it's still the same aspect ratio, but you're cutting bits and pieces of the screen off. So on my second monitor, the only thing you can see is here and here. You cannot see left and right, but on my secondary monitor, I can. You can also right click and go to transform, and you can rotate it. Or what I like to do is I say fit to screen. If something is too small, you can have it say stretch to screen, but that usually distorts it or zooms in and crops. So I usually go with fit to screen. Since I have monitor number 2 and I am happy with how it looks, I'm going to go ahead and lock that into place. So now that we have this locked, we can add another source. Now this is kind of what I was telling you guys about with the layers, like how things work. So for example, I'm going to open up 2 images. For my first image, I'm going to type out Nntndork face. And I'm going to make sure that make the source visible is checked. I'm going to click OK and browse for my photo, which will be my face. As you can see here, I have my face. We're going to click on that and open. OK. And I'm not happy with that it's cutting half my face off, so I'm going to shrink it down. And now, as you can see, I have it over top of my paint program here. I want to show you guys something. This is what I was talking about earlier that a lot of people like struggle with when they first start. So if I take monitor number 2 and I place it on top of my face is still there, but it is underneath the paint program. So basically you just need to keep in mind whatever you are capturing, whether it be your game, your tutorial, whatever it is, you always want to keep that on the very bottom layer and everything else on top. Otherwise, that's what happens, is it gets messed up and people usually freak out like, oh no, it's here, but I can't see it. That's why. And now I'm going to add a secondary face, another image. It's going to be of my buddy Mr. Smithy. Face. Make sure that make source visible is checked. Okay. Browse. And we're going to click on Mr. Smithy's face. Okay. So we're going to do this. And now we're going to have his face beside mine. But watch, this is, again, if I take his face and put it over mine, now, you know, you can't really see my face as much. So if you unlock it and you move my face up on top of his, now my face is visible over his. So just keep that in mind. Again, you know, whenever you're doing your sources, just keep that in mind. Just if it's visual, keep that in mind. If it's audio, it doesn't really matter as much. All right, so we don't have anything in our audio mixer, so we're going to go ahead and add that now. So again, come down to sources, add, and click on audio output capture. Output, not input, out. I'm going to name this one headphones. And for my device, I'm going to select whatever my output is for my headphones. So that's going to look completely different to everybody. So in order to find that out easily, come down here. On Windows anyways, click on this. And then whatever this is right here, Realtek High Definition Audio. That's what mine says. And I even customized it to where it says headphones rear. Yours will probably say Realtek High Definition Audio, more than likely. So all you have to do to test it is click on this. If you guys can hear that through your headphones, that's the one that you need to select up here. So now anything that you hear on your headphones, your stream should be able to hear. So whether it's music or your video game, whatever, then it should be right here. Pretty simple stuff. This, it doesn't matter if it's up or down, whatever, as long as you don't click the eye icon, which is to hide something. So for example, you can hide Smithy's face, or hide my face, or even hide my paint program. So as long as you keep this where it's visible, you should be good. If you do this, then you're not going to be able to like see it or hear it or anything. So make sure with audio devices, you keep this here. Really quickly, the thing that people have been asking me the most about is capture cards. I was asked specifically about this one. I did a review of it. You can see that one at the end of the video or in the description down below. But we're going to be testing this one out today just to show you guys what to do. Same thing, works, it applies for this one or any other capture device. Basically, you're going to take this or this one and you're going to plug them into the USB port on your computer. And then you're going to plug whatever you want to capture into the HDMI port. And then once you have done that, then you can follow this next step. Now that you have your capture card plugged in and you have your game system or camera of choice plugged in, you're going to want to come back down here to source, click on the plus button, and you're going to want to add a video capture device. We can call it whatever we want. For this one, I'm going to call it capture card. But again, you can name it whatever you want. Now that we have our capture card, we're going to go to device. We are going to select whatever our capture card is. If it's the Elgato, it should say, I think it's Elgato HD 60 Plus or whichever one you have, but it should say Elgato in the name. Otherwise, mine, the little cheap Vivitar one, is going to be USB video. And there we go. But as you can see, it put everything over top of like my paint program and stuff. So what you can do to fix that again is to come down to sources and drag this underneath everything. But before we do that, I just want to show you guys a couple settings. So this is the properties for your capture device, whether that be your webcam, whatever. But if you click on deactivate, that will deactivate it. This is actually really useful for if your capture card or whatever you have plugged in, whether it be your webcam, capture card, whatever. If it ever freezes or something is not acting right, you can always click deactivate and reactivate. Especially with the Elgato, I know a lot of times it'll show like green lines across the screen. All you gotta do, go down to sources, click on your Elgato or your capture card, click deactivate, activate, and it should fix it. It should. At least for me, it always has. It's always worked. If you come down here to configure video, this is where you can do things like adjust the brightness of, say, your video game. Say it's not bright enough in the video game itself. You can do that. You can adjust the contrast, the hue, the saturation, all of that. Configure crossbar. I don't know what configure crossbar does. Never does anything for me. Deactivate when not showing. That's a good thing to check if you have a lower end machine, not as powerful. So that way when you switch your scenes down here, it will make sure that this shuts off. And then when you come back to this scene, it should pop back up for you. Resolution type is device default. So for the Nintendo Switch, it's 1920 by 1080 if it's docked. And everything else, color space, I don't know, just leave everything default basically. If for some reason you want to, you can flip your Nintendo Switch or whatever you have plugged in vertically. Don't know why you'd want to do that with a Nintendo Switch, but if for some reason you want to do that, you do that. As far as your audio is concerned, with being able to hear your video game with this capture card specifically, and maybe this one, I don't remember, it's been a while since I've used this one, but you're going to want to go to this here which says output mode, and you're going to want to do output desktop audio direct sound, and then use a custom audio device. And then for this one, you're going to want to use USB digital. That will be different depending on what you're using. But for me, I'm going to go with USB digital audio, which would be my capture card. Once you're done with all that, click OK. And now we should be able to hear the Nintendo Switch. It's very laggy on my end because I've got like 6 programs running. I promise it's normal under other circumstances. But as you can see, as I mentioned before, down here in the sources, the capture card, it's above everything else, so you can't see Mr. Smithy's face, you can't see mine, and you can't see my secondary monitor. So basically what you're going to want to do, since this is the one that's capturing everything, I'm going to go above monitor number 2. Because if I go below monitor number 2, it shows my secondary monitor, which is off screen, and I don't want that. I want it to show capture card. Now mine and Mr. Smithy's face is here on my Switch. So again, you can unlock and move them, or if you don't want them, you can delete them. So you can either right click and then remove, yes, or you can click on one and then click this little minus button, yes, or you can click on one and click the delete key on your keyboard and it should get rid of it. Now that we have our game audio and our video game set up, we're going to add a webcam. I'm going to tell you guys something. I've not been using my webcam. I've been using my phone. So that's why the quality looks so good. The quality is probably going to drop whenever I set up a webcam. But again, to set up a webcam, come down here under sources, add, and do a video capture device. Create new, name it webcam, or whatever you want to call it. I already have one called 1080p cam, which is my webcam. But for this example, we're going to create new webcam. Make sure the source is visible and click OK. And then for your device, you're going to want to go to whatever your webcam is. Mine is 1080p Pro Stream because it's the Logitech C920, I think, which you can find in the description down below if you want to purchase it yourself. Okay, this is a really good learning example. So I already had my webcam as a source, so it's not going to let me use it again. So what I'm going to do personally, because I already have my webcam set up, I'm going to delete this source. I'm going to add another source, and it will be, again, video capture device. Instead of creating a new one, I'm going to click on add existing, and I'm going to click on 1080p cam because that's what I named it previously right here under create new. Click OK. Now we have my webcam, and the reason it is a black square right now is because I have my phone in front of my webcam. So let me take that down and switch over to my webcam. So now, as you guys can see, hi, this is my webcam, and this is what you guys are seeing as far as this is concerned. So I want to move my webcam here, and I'm sorry if it's laggy. It shouldn't be laggy by default. It's only laggy because, again, I have several programs open right now to show you guys how to do this tutorial. And again, you guys can transform this, you can mirror it, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can crop it. So for example, if I do the Alt key and grab here, I can cut off my webcam to where I have to be lower on my webcam for you to see me. Or you can bring it all the way up. You can right click, do transform. Where's transform? Right here. You can edit your transform where it's freely. You can rotate it 90 degrees. So I'm that way and I have to be like this. Wait, this way in order to say you hi. But personally, if you're going to be doing like gaming videos, the tutorials, and you want to show your face, what I recommend doing is bringing it down smaller and placing you in, like, say, a corner or something. So some people will do the middle, some people will do the corners. Personally, when I am live streaming, I always put myself down in the corner. I'll shrink me down to about here. And once I'm okay with where my webcam is, I will click the lock button. That way I can't mess it up. Because again, if I take my capture card and move it in front of my webcam, then you're not going to see me anymore, even though my webcam is there and recording. You're going to want to make sure that you keep these locked. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to unlock it. I'm going to click on my webcam. I'm going to click the Alt key, hold it down, and I'm going to drag this over to crop. And I'm going to drag this down with the Alt key to crop it like that. So now that way, there's only green behind me. I'm going to show you guys how to add filters. So that way, if you have a green screen, you can have it where it's not just a square like this. Basically, what you're going to want to do is right click on your webcam and go to filters. So what you're going to want to do for your green screen is click on the plus button under effect filters, plus, and you're going to add a chroma key. And let's just name it, I don't know, green screen. And as you can tell down here on the bottom left, it kind of did it, but you can see as I wave my hand, you can see the green screen behind me. And also it looks kind of fuzzy because my screen is green. I'm going to select green under the key color type. And I'm just going to kind of mess around with these settings until I find something I really like. For example, if I move this up, you can see that's already eliminated a lot of the green. There is spillage, so I'm so green now that I'm invisible. But I mean, if that's the kind of look you're going for, go for it. But basically, I try to go something like that. The next thing you're going to want to do, go to settings. Once we're under settings, you're going to see all of these right here. Starting with general, the theme, You can do it however you want. Personally, I stick with dark. I am a dark theme user myself. Probably going to want to have this tick, the automatically check for updates on startup, unless new updates on programs scare you. Then, you know, keep this checked. Do not open stats dialog on startup. That makes it full screen, and the only way to get out of it is to do Alt and V. Alt and V. So if that ever opens up, if you have this checked and it opens up your whole entire screen where you can't see your OBS, just remember Alt and V. For your output, I would recommend checking this box here, automatically record when streaming. Basically, all that does is when you go live on YouTube or Twitch, it also saves a hard copy to your desktop. So that way, if you want to like take that whole video and re-upload it to YouTube or a different platform later, you're free to do so. As far as projectors are concerned, I have hide cursor over projectors. You can make it where projectors are always on top and save projectors on exit. You don't really have to worry too much about that. Projectors are, if I wanted this, which is what my stream will see, if I wanted this to be full screen, you could right click and then you do full screen projector preview, and on your main monitor, now it's full screen. And obviously I can't see my cursor even though it's clearly on screen. So I can't see my cursor, and the stream should not either. And to get out of that, you can click escape. But that's what a projector is. The next thing, you want to go to stream, service. I'm on YouTube. I don't know why it automatically switched me to Twitch. I guess that's default, but I'm going to go with YouTube. Now that I'm connected to YouTube, which I don't know why it disconnected me, you could ignore streaming service settings recommendations, which I wouldn't really do that unless you have a really good internet connection and a really, really strong computer that can handle everything like streaming, playing games, all at the same time. So I just leave this unchecked for now. Under your output tab, just keep it simple for now. But the one thing that I do want you guys to take a look at is your recording path. So basically, if you go live or if you just record, this is where your videos are going to be saved at on your hard drive on your computer. So by default, it's C, users, your username, and videos folder. I always change mine to a very specific path, so just keep that in mind. You can do that by going to Browse, which once you've done that, you can click Select and it will save all of your videos there. By default, you can really just skip audio. Don't really need to mess with that. Video, this is where you change your base canvas size, which is your preview right here, and your output resolution. Your output resolution is what your viewers would see on your live streams. And then the only other thing that I would change is if you realize that you can go from 30 frames to 60 frames and your computer or stream is okay, I recommend doing that. That's how you can change it there. Hotkeys, I mean, that should be self-explanatory. For example, if I wanted to start recording, you click on start recording and then type in whatever keys you want to start recording. So shift A space, done, or shift and space, it doesn't catch A. So now if I click shift and space, it'll start recording this stream for me. And then the advanced tab, you want to go to general, your process priority, make sure, I think by default it's set to normal, make sure you have this on high. What that does is it basically takes all of your computer's resources and focuses it, like it gives all of its energy basically, or most of its energy to OBS, which would make it run smoother. So make sure with that, your process priority, you want it to be high. Everything else, you can really leave the same. And with that, my Dorklings, I think that pretty much wraps it up. If I missed anything or if you still have any questions, let me know. As far as troubleshooting goes, I don't know that I will be able to help, but I will try my best. So you guys can leave a comment down below, and yeah, let me know if this helped. If it did help, make sure you smash, like, subscribe, do all that cool stuff down below. You stay rich on my Dorklings. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.